So now the feature we want to add now is the following and unfollowing feature. Right now we just have those buttons. If we click on it, nothing is going to happen. So what we want to do is that once we click on this follow, we want the user that is currently logged in to be able to follow the user that is on this page. So that is basically what we want now. But first of all, let's go ahead and go to the home. And once we go to the home, let's just log out. So I want us to create a new account, and let's create tom@g.co. Let's give it a password and sign up. So now that we have that, we can save that. Let's just give it this default profile image and say I am Tom, an high school student, and I can say is located, let's say, in New York, and let's just hit save. So now we can go home, and basically we just still see the post of John. We can like the post, liked by one person. And what we want to do now is to be able to go to John's profile. So now we are in John profile. The reason why I did this is because we want to be able to follow John from another account, because we were logged in as John and we were viewing our own profile. And later on, we're still going to change it that if I am logged in, I am viewing my own profile, I shouldn't even see this follow button. Like, I can't follow myself. That's impossible. So I shouldn't see that. We're also going to add that at some time in this video. But first of all, since we have this now, let's go ahead and coding. So we're just going to come back to VS Code. First thing we want to do is to create a model for this followers count. So we're going to say class, and we just say followers count, and we'll say models.model, and this will just take two fields. First one will be follower, that's the person that is following, that dot char field, max_length. So what's gonna go into this particular field is the username of the person that is following another user, and user now is the person that is being followed. Character field, max_length equals 100. So now let's just turn or show person that is being followed. That's the username of the person that is being followed. So return self.user. We can save this now and come into our command prompt. We're just going to go ahead and opt out of the server first of all. Then we're going to make migrations, and then after making migrations, we just want to migrate the database. Let's run python manage.py migrate. That's done, and let's just run our server again. So as that is trying to run, we're going to come in here and we want to register this new followers count model. We want to register it in our admin panel. So we have to open admin.py, import that, and register it like this. So that's going to register it for us. And now if we come right here and we go to home, we should now see followers count. So this is just going to store the data of everybody following each other, who is following, who is being followed. That's going to store it, and later on we're going to be able to use that to get the amount of people that is following a user and the amount of people that user is following. So now that we have this followers count, let's now create a new URL. Now this new URL is gonna, so let me come back here. Once the user click on follow, a request is going to be sent to that URL to create or update that particular followers object. So let's come back here now. We're going to create a new URL, and this URL, we can just make it, we can make it follow, So we can say views.follow name equals follow, and we can have a new view and say request, and let's just pass first of all, and then this we also need to be logged in before we can access following feature, before we can follow a user. Now let's just save that. So now that we have all of this, what we just want to do is to come into our profile page. Then we're gonna just wrap, this is already wrapped in a form, and what we're just gonna do is to have some fields and use this follow like as a submit button to trigger that request to be sent to this follow URL. And then once we do that, we're going to come here, get all those values, and then create an object. So let's come into profile, and as you can see, with the template already wraps this in a form. And since this is in a form already, what we can just do is to specify the method and the action. So we can say action first of all, as where is this going to. Let's take you to .follow /follow, and the method is post. Whenever we're using a post method, make sure to add our CSRF token. So now that we have all of these, what we just want to do is to come in here, right here, where we have this button. Let's just make that a part. So what we want to do now, first of all, we want to have an input field, but the type of this field, we want it to be hidden, and we want to give it like a value of user.username. So what we're getting is a currently logged in user. Actually, we can also do this on the on the back end, on the views, like when we trigger that button. Once we come here, we can just get the currently logged in user. You can do it anyhow you like. This is just showing you, multiple ways you can do it, or anyhow you feel is more secure or that you prefer to run in your application. But we can also do it like this. Might not be as secure as doing it in the backend, but this is also another method. What we can just do now is to say name is equals to follower. So this is the person that is following another user. That's the currently logged in user, or that's the authenticated user. I want to have another field also. So the other field is also going to be hidden, and this one is going to be user object dot username. So this user object is the user of this person we are viewing, the profile we are viewing. We're just getting a username, and then this one should be user. So since we have those two inputs now, right here, this button, we're going to make it a submit button. So we can just say type equals button. So since this is already been made the submit button, we are basically good to go, because this is already a submit button. That means when we click this button, it sends these two values to /follow. Now we can go to /follow and go collect all of these values. So right here in follow, first thing we're going to do is to say if request the method equals to post. First of all, let's pass. Then we can say else return redirect. Let's say to the home page. So if it's a post method, we're going to do what we want to do. But if it's not a post method and someone is just trying to access /follow without doing anything, just redirect the person to the home page. So now that we have that, what we want to do now is to get the follower as the person being followed, the person that is following someone else. So we can say request dot post follower. Now let's also say for the user, and that's request dot post user. So since we have these details now, let's first of all import that follower count model. Now that we have this model, we can come in here, and what we want to do, we first of all want to check if this person is already following, if the currently logged in user is already following this user. So the only way we can check is we're going to query the database and say, does is there an object in which the follower is the currently logged in user and the user is the person that is being viewed. So if there's an object like that, that means that this user is already following that user and is trying to unfollow that user. Or if there's not an object like that, that means this user wants to follow this. So say if follower count dot objects dot filter. Now I don't want to get one object, but I explained earlier in this tutorial why we are using dot filter. Dot filter, the one in which follower is equals to follower, and then user is equals to user. Then dot first, very important. So if this exists, we want to delete that. So we'll say delete follower. That will be equals to follower count dot object dot get this time around, since we already know that exists, equals follower, and user is equals to user. So we're just getting the specific object in which this is true, and once we have that, I'm just gonna say delete follower dot delete, and now we can just redirect back to the profile page of that specific user. But this is only if the person already follows and is trying to unfollow. But what if the person doesn't follow yet and is trying to really follow this user? We'll say else new follower is equals to follower count dot object dot create, the one in which follower is equals to follower and user equals to user. Now we'll say new follower dot save, and we're just also gonna redirect back to the page of that user. Now let's see. All this is working now, should be working now. Let's go ahead and test it. So we're gonna come in here. Let's first come to our models and make sure that and confirm that there is no object here. We hit the refresh button now and we say follow. As you can see, it brings us back to this page. We don't get anything, we don't even know that we followed. We're going to do that later and show the user that you really followed this user. But if we come back here and hit refresh, you see a new object being created. So as we can see, a new object wasn't created. Come here, let's see why. Okay, it doesn't even give us an error here. Let's try to opt out of the server and run that again. And everything seems to be working here, so that should definitely work. So let's try to do that again. Let's first of all refresh this page. I think that was the error we didn't refresh the page. But anyways, let's say follow. So now it brings us back to this page. Come back here and hit refresh. So as we hit refresh, it still doesn't update that, so it doesn't create a new user or anything like that. So now let's go back to our code and go see what's wrong. So if we come back here, we are saying if the request.object filter is there, then we just want to delete that follower. And doing that by followers count.object.get follower equals follower here, and then we're deleting the user right here. And after that, we're redirecting the user to the. So after doing that, follower equals account dot create here, and then we're saving this one this time around. And then after doing that, we're redirecting the user back to the page. So this should totally work. Let's just make sure our URLs specified correctly. So if we come here, let's see, form also works. So the action is going to slash follow. That works. And another thing we should check, we're using the CSRF token. We have these inputs, so everything should be working fine. Let's just go ahead and try that again. Now let's hit refresh and just, so if we over this, we're gonna see, if you look at the left bottom corner, bottom left, you're gonna see that it's as is linking to slash profile slash John, which shouldn't be. So there's like an a tag that is linking to that. Let's check that out if that's okay. So we see that this is in an a tag and it's basically linking to this page. So let's first of all clear that out. We don't want that to link to anything, we want it to submit. So since we have that cleared out, we can come here and refresh. Now we don't see that link at the bottom left corner. Now let's hit this follow. Let's refresh the page. Okay, let's wait for that to load and we hit follow. So as we do this, nothing happens. So first of all, let's see, nothing happens. So that means there's something wrong right here in our code. And what is wrong, we just need to check. So we have an a tag. We need this title, just clearing our code. And then in there we have this button with the type submit, that's the style, and that's the border also text. So everything seems to be working, and this button should, let's see, let's hit refresh again and let's try to click on the button. So I think we just need to change this tag. Let's see if it's a p tag. So that takes that away from there, but let's click on this button now and see. So that still doesn't work. We're just gonna try to do to see if this is linked to any class. Let's take that back to an a tag. So data repo, let's see, let's hit the refresh button and hit follow. So now that we don't have the data repo, it just isn't working. But what we can do now is just to take this out. Okay, so I'm sure some of you may have noticed the error while I've been searching for it. So there's nothing wrong with this data repo or the class. Basically what is wrong is the type is meant to be submit and not button. Let's just try that out again. So allow this to load, and yeah, so now it brings us back to this page. That means something must have worked. Let's go back in here and hit refresh. Good. So now we can see that we have a new object. Follower is Tom and the user is John. That means Tom is following. That is what we want to see. Now that we have this, the next thing we want to do is to show the amount of users that this specific user has, the amount of users this user have. Now to do that, we're going to have to come into the views of profile. So we've taken care of a user following and unfollowing. Let's just test that one more time. If we click on this follow button now and then we come in here and hit refresh, that's gone. Now I said we want to get the amount of followers and following, but before we even do that, there's one thing that is important that we do. So what we want to do is that once the user has followed this user, we don't want to show follow again. Now we want to show unfollow, so the user can know that, okay, this user is a user I'm following already, so I want to unfollow this user now. And another thing we want to do is that if this user is viewing his own profile, we don't want him to even see the follow button. What we want him to see is like a button that goes to his account settings, for example, so the user can go set his account. Now let's do that. First of all, let's make sure that if this user is himself, he should not be seeing the follow button. So we're gonna come back in here. What we're gonna do, we're gonna say come back right here. So no, not here, index as profile. If the user object dot username so if the user object dot username is just equals to user dot username, that means if it's equals to the currently logged in user, we don't want to show this. So else we want to show this, then let's end the if. So we've ended the if tag, and now what we want to do, just to say, instead of this button, gonna be a button also. What we're gonna do is to copy this, paste it here, and it's not gonna have a type button, and this a tag is gonna have where it's linking to, and that should be /settings. Save that. Now if we come in here and hit refresh, I'm only seeing this follow button because we are viewing the profile page of another user, but we logged in as Tom. So now if we view Tom, actually this should be account settings. Okay, now the reason why that is not account settings because we didn't change that here. Let's say account settings. Now if we hit refresh, what we see now is account settings, and if we click on that, it should take us to the page where we can, let's see, if we over, this just brings us back to this page. Let's make sure that it's working. But if you look at the bottom left corner, we see that it's supposed to link to account settings. So yeah, so if we come back here now, what we can just do is to basically make sure, all right, so we don't need this. I'm gonna come here, no, not for here, it's for the account settings. You don't need the button, you just need the a tag. Now that we have this, we can hit refresh, and once we click on account settings, it takes us to the settings page for this user. Now we can go back to wherever we were, and we can view the profile page of John. Good. So this is what we want to see. So the next thing we want to see is to be able to change this to like unfollow when we are following the user. So let's come back here first of all, because this has been altered. So let's save this and see if that affects this button. That doesn't. Go back, gonna redo. Okay, so let's see. Let's just save that first of all. Come back here and hit refresh. This is the button for this, and then if we remove the button for account settings, let's see. Refresh. So that doesn't alter it, but if we go to Tom, that's how Tom's own looks. And if we come back here, good. So we have that settled, and what we want to do, as I said, is to change this to unfollow when we are following that specific user. For us to do this, we need to come into view. So now in this view, we don't need follow view again. What we need is this profile view, and one thing we want to get is follower equals to request dot user dot username, that's the person that is following, and user is equals to pk. So now that we have these two, what we can just say is if follower count dot object dot filter follower equals to follower and user equals to user dot first. So if this is actually in our database, then that means the user is already following this user that is viewing. So let's say button text, we're just having a new variable, and then we want it to be on follow, else we want button text equals to follow. So now we want to pass button text part of the context. So what we just did there was we checked if there is an object which has those fields, and if there is, that means the user is already following that user, so we want to unfollow. If not, it should follow. So now that we have this, we can save it, come into profile. What we want to do now is right here where we have follow, we want to remove that now and put button text. So this button text now is dynamic. Is either it changes the text to whatever is basically in our database, adjusts. If we come back here and hit refresh and we hit follow now, see now it changes to unfollow because we're following this user. We refresh this page, that's still there. So let's refresh, unfollow, so now we can follow. So that is basically working now. And the next thing we want to do is to have followers count right here. So another thing to do now is just to come into views, and right here I'm gonna say user followers will be equals to followers count dot object dot filter, the one in which user is equals to pk. What we're doing is that we're getting this followers count model and we're filtering only the one in which the user, now this user is the person that is being followed, so we're saying the one in which the user is equals to pk, and pk is the username of this user that we are viewing. So all the times that this user is being followed is what we want to get, and what we just want to do is to calculate the length of that. So now that is an integer which calculates the length, and we want to do exactly the same thing for the following. Let's come back to views. We want to do exactly the same thing and change this to user following, and now followers counts dot object of filter, the one in which the follower equals to pk. Now we have all of this, let's also pass it in this context. And the user following. So now we have all of this in this context dictionary. We now come into this place, into the profile.html page where we have all these followers and following. What we can just do now, these followers, we can change it to user followers, and this following we can change it to user following. Now let's go back and hit refresh and see what's up. So it says 0 followers, 0 following, but if I follow this user now, so it gives us an error of unbound local error at profile join, blah blah blah. It doesn't work. So what we just want to do, come in here, but we need to make sure where the error is coming from. So it's coming from user followers right here. So it says it's assigned before use. What we can just do, back to views. Okay, so it's because all of these we put it inside the else indentation, so inside the else block. That's why if we're having it in the else block, we're supposed to have it in the if block, but we don't even want it in there, so we just want it on its own. But now that should work, and let's just hit refresh. Now it has one follower. If I unfollow, throw followers back. Yeah, so that is working. Another thing we want to change is this follower. So if it's 0 follower, it shouldn't have an S. So let's just quickly fix that the way we've been doing it with the other ones. So what we just want to do is to come up here in the profile, and we're going to go to where we have these followers. Let's just distinguish it from user following. So now we're going to say if followers, if user followers is equals to 0, or user followers is equals to 1. Then if it's equals to 0 or 1, we'll just say follower. So 0 follower or 1 follower. Else, so let's copy paste this, and right here we will say else, want to add an S, and then we'll just end the if tag. Now we have this. We come here and hit refresh. Now we see 1 follower. We unfollow. This is 0 follower. So this is working. Now let me follow this user. So that means this user has 1 follower. So that means I am following 1 person. If I come to my account now, I see that my following is 1. I am following 1 person. So that is basically what we have achieved this profile section. So far we've been able to get the profile image, basically get all the details of the user, and we'll be able to implement the followers and following. We made the text in here dynamic, so if the user is following already, that should be unfollow, but if the user is not following, that should be follow. Now let's move to the next section. So at this point now, we are able to see a user's profile. We're able to follow that user. We'll see the amount of followers the user have, the amount of posts. We're able to see all the posts and all this good stuff. But in the beginning of this tutorial, when we come to home, we are just able to see the list of all the posts we have on this platform. That's all the posts we have in our database. That's what is shown. We're not customizing this feed for a user, and that is bad because we want a user to be able to see the posts of the people he is following, not just anybody's post. So right now it's just showing all the old posts we have on the platform, which doesn't really make sense. What we want to do now is to be able to customize this to be able to show only the posts that the post of the people that the user is following, basically. So that's what we want to do right now. So let's click on this. So the first thing we want to do, let's make sure that once we click on this and right here, it takes us to the profile page of the user. So we're going to come into index and we'll say user post.user. So right here, it should take us to slash profile slash post.user. So we can just copy that. We can just search for the other post.user right here. Now if we refresh this, should be able to go to the That's good, and we are following this user. So now let's just go back to the home page, and right now we're going to come into the views of this index, and we actually need to do a little bit of tweaking in here. So what we're going to do first of all, let's assign like two empty lists first of all. So we'll say user following list. So this is the list. This will contain all the users that the logged in user is following, and let's just say feed. So this feed is also a list, but it will contain like the list. We're gonna first query the database to get only the posts of the persons that the user is following, and then that is going to give us in like a query set, but we're not going to have to convert that into a list. So the first thing we want to do is to say user following equals to follower count dot object dot filter. We're just getting all the users, the objects of all the users that the user is following. So the one in which the follower equals to request dot user dot username. So that's the user following, and we use the follow up and say for users in user following. What we just want to do is to say user following list. We want to append the username of each of everybody the user is following. So we say user following dot append users dot user, and that is good. So now we want to append to the feed list. So we'll say for usernames in the user following list that we have now, the feed lists should be equals to post.object.filter, the one in which the user is equals to the usernames. And let's just say feed.append. Now I want to append to this feed list. Now that we have that, this is like a query set now. I want to convert that to a list so we can look through it in the template. What we're going to do now is to say feed list, without an s now because this is a new variable on its own, will be equals to, now we're going to use a function that we need to import. So we're going to say from tools for chain. So chain is going to be able to convert it to a list for us. Now we can't just use this, when we have feed, because what we want to do right now is to now convert this feed to a list. We can do something like list, then in there we have feed, but we can't just do that here. So what we want to do is to say list chain, and in there we have an asterisk mark, and we say feed. So now that we have this, we can just pass it into the HTML. So right here, instead of sending posts now, what we can just send feed list. Now if I come here and hit refresh, we make sure our server is running. So that's done. And let me come here and hit refresh, and let's see what we see. We still see this, and the reason why we see this is because this user is following John. So what we're going to do now, first of all, as Tom, let me choose a file. I want to upload an image as Tom. And what I'm just going to do is put an image, put in a caption, and I'm going to log out and log in as John. Then I'm going to follow Tom. Then what you're going to see is that I don't see the images of John, which is myself. Image I see now is of Tom. as I upload this now, you're going to see that it doesn't show here. It doesn't appear here because I don't want to see my image. I can just easily go to my profile. But I'm going to log out now and log in as John. Now that I log in as John and I hit login, you see I can't see anybody profile image right here. It's just blank because I'm not following anybody. But now if I go to /profile /Tom, you can see Tom has one post. If I follow Tom now and I go to home, you now see that I'm able to see the posts of Tom. So this is a very good feature. So let's just log out and log in back as Tom. So now John, I go in there, I unfollow, come back home. I can't see any post because I'm not following anybody. But once I follow John and go back home, I see John's post. So this is what I want. Right now, we want to have a unique feature, which is going to be a downloading feature. This means that a user is going to be able to download the image he sees on someone's post. Like, sees this image and he loves it. This button here, once you click on it, you should be able to download that image. So right now, the button doesn't do anything, but let's go ahead and add that feature. Come back to VS Code right now, and we'll go to index. So this is actually very simple and fast. What we're just going to do is to look for where we have that button. So we have it, scroll down. No, it's inside the for loop. So that's how we know. And this is the caption. We have as a caption. Caption is down below, so it should be before it. So right. What we're just going to do now is search for where we have SVG image. This is for the like, and right here is for the download. So what we just want to do is to have this go to this post dot image dot URL, but we don't just want it to go there, because right now if I save this and hit refresh, if I try to click on this, what it's just gonna do is gonna take me to that URL. I want it to download that URL for me without even going away from this page. Very easy. With HTML, we can just add download right here and we leave it blank. So that is just gonna do that first. Come here and hit refresh. Now if we click on this, you're gonna see that it's gonna download that image from. So as you can see at the top right corner right here, something is about to start downloading. So as you can see, that has been downloaded. I can open that file here. Just gonna open that in a new tab, and that is downloaded. So that's just a feature I wanted to add. Thought it was cool. And let's move on with the project. Now what we want to add to our website is the search functionality. Let's just go ahead and refresh this page. So now if we want to be able to search for something and hit enter or press the search button, and then it should bring results corresponding to whatever the user searched. So let's go ahead and do that. First of all, as we can see, once the user inputs something, we don't even have a button where the user can click search. So let's fix that first of all in the UI. We're gonna come in here now, and before we do that, I just want to say that I brought in the search.html from my template. So if you have been watching from the beginning, you know that there was no search.html here. I just brought it from my template, but you don't need to worry about that. All these files are going to be in the GitHub link, so you don't need to worry about that. Now what we need to do is to come into index.html, and right here actually where we have header inner, we want to have a form, and then we're just going to close the form. So we should be able to have a form here before left side here, and close the form somewhere around. Scroll down here, right here. Now that we have that done, next thing we want to do is to come into the fields. So if we scroll right here, see that we have this type of text. We want to give it a name of username, and since we're giving it a name now, next thing we just want to do is to first of all remove this particular search that is beside it. We don't want to search there. What we want to have is search after it. So this should be like in a box, and like a search button after it. Let's go ahead and do that. So right here, we do not need this. We do not need any of this. And what we can just do is to say button type equals submit, and we can close that button. And now we want to use an icon here. So first of all, let's comment out this div tag. We don't want this to be in this div tag, just so it won't affect this. So we want it to be like outside that box of this header, because if it's in that div tag, the changes we're making is not going to work. I'm also going to show you that. So now what we just want to do is to come into that search.html that I imported, and right here we want to copy this. So what this is basically just the same thing. Once I run the search.html, you see that the header right here is very similar to the header of the index.html. But the search.html already has like its own form tweaked. So that's why we can come in here and just copy what we need and paste it right here. One more thing we need, since we're using that icon, we need to import it. So I'm just gonna link CSS, just scroll up, and right here paste. So now that that is done, if we come here and hit refresh, we should see that we can search for something and we can hit here to sub. So if I come in here now, and as I said, if I don't remove this from this div tag and I hit refresh, now you see it's just not looking well. So that's why I removed that from the div tag. Having that said, let's also leave a space right here. Let's have and nbsp colon, copy that, paste. Let's have two of it. Once we hit refresh, now we have a good space beside it. So that is good. Now we just have this name of username and this submit. What we want to do in this form, we want it to go to the action URL, no, the search URL. We want the action to go to the search /search. We want this action to go to /search, and with a method of post. And once we're using the post method, we need to add a CSRF token. So now we know that there is no URL named search, so we need to go ahead and create that. So let's just copy paste. We'll say search. I'm gonna come in here and create a new view. Search. Done. Render. Request. Search.html. So we can save that. Let's also give it this login required. Save that also. Now let's make sure that our app reloads successfully. Once it reloads successfully, test it out. Come back in here now. Hit refresh. If I search for JO and I search, it takes me to this slash search page, and now I just only search.html. So as you can see, it's not really showing any result now. It's just showing this dummy data or this static data that we put in the search.html. But now what I want to do is that it should show a result that's correlating to whatever the user search. Now for us to do this, we're going to have to come into this views.py. We're going to have to get the username that the user sent. So if we give out whatever the user input, we need to get it here. To save request, the method equals to post. If the post method, we say request dot post username. That should be username. So we basically just got the username, and then what we want to do next is to filter the data. So when we filter the data to only any username that contains what the user search, we just send it back to that page. So what we want to do now, say we're gonna get the user object. So this is just because right here we can see it says welcome Tom, which is good, but right here it doesn't show the profile. So if we go back to the home page, it shows the profile of the user. So we also want it to show the profile. We are just gonna say user object equals to user dot objects dot get, the one in which the username is equals to request dot user dot username. And this doesn't really correlate with the search form, but we just want to take care of that now. And since we have that user object, what we just want to get is the user profile. Be equals to profile dot object dot get, the one in which the user equals to user dot object. Now if I pass this to the HTML, so right here, actually what I want to pass is user profile, not user object. I come back here now and hit refresh. Now you see that it shows update that. So that is taken care of. Now back to searching. So if the method is equals to post, get the username, and then we get the, we'll say user name object, and that will be user dot objects dot filter, one in which the username underscore I contains equals username. What this is doing is that we're getting a list of all the objects in which whatever the user search is contained in the username. So if the user search for, if the user search for TOM, then what it's going to do is that it's going to go into our database, look for any user in which TOM is in the username, and it's going to return that into this variable. Now that we have that, let's first specify two empty lists. So say username underscore profile. We have the object, let's get the profile. Say username underscore profile underscore list. Now remember that we have to convert it to a list, so let's just have that also as a blank list. Now say for users in username object, user name profile, so say here, right here, username profile dot append. What we want to append is, so what we're doing is for users in username object, we'll say username profile dot append each of these users dot id. So we want to get this one using the id this time around. So now we want to say append users dot id. Now that we have their id, we'll say for ids in username profile, that's each of the id that we get. We now say profile list should be equals to profile dot object dot filter, the one in which the id user equals to ids. So the one in which the id user, if we come into our models, we go to profile, we'll see that we have a field name id user, which is the id of the specific user which is being talked about or used right here. So right here we have id user equals to ids, and we'll say user name underscore profile underscore list. So append. Now we just want to append profile lists to it. And now that we have that, we can just say username profile list. So now we just want to update that with itself, but this time around converted. So we'll say list chain and then asterisk of the username profile list. It should be profile asterisk of the username profile list, like this. So now that we have this, what we can just do is take it into like this. We're taking it into search.html. So we're taking it as username profile list. So if we have that, we can just simply come here into search.html now. We're going to scroll down and we're going to loop through that database. What we're going to do is we're going to scroll down, and when we scroll down, actually is in a section right here. So we're going to say for let's say users in username profile list. Let's end the for loop immediately after that section is closed. So end for. Now that we end that for loop, we can now use this to customize it. So what we want to do now is to get the profile image. So we'll say users dot profile img dot url, and then we want to get the username. Say users get the username dot user name. So if you come into profile models, actually if we come into these models, we have to say user dot user. What we can just do right now is to say users dot user, and after that we're going to do the same thing for location. Say users dot location, and we'll do exactly the same thing for the bio. Good. Now what we want to do is that once a user clicks on any of these, you take the user to the profile page of that user. So now we'll say slash profile slash user dot user, and let's also do the same thing right here. Good. So now we have this done. Let's now come back here. Let's go to the home page, and right here now let's search for JOH. Once we search for that, so it says I contain for chat field or join not permitted. So if we come in here, it should be I contains with an S. Let's just close that. And now let's try that again. Now let's say JOH. Boom. So as you can see now, it says John Toronto. I am John. So it just shows us the bio, the profile image. Good. And we can go to the profile of that person. Now let's search for like Tom. Now we can see we have Tom. It gives us the profile image, the location, and the bio. We can go to the profile of that user. So this is basically what we have, and this is how to build a very simple search picture. So we can search for JOHN, and now it just shows us that we have one user named John. This is what we want to do. Now, last feature we want to add is the suggestions feature. So this right here has been with us since the beginning of this project, and what I want to do here is just to say users you can follow, and it's going to recommend users that you are not already following and users that is not you. So it's just a very simple algorithm we're going to use. Anybody that you're not following, it can recommend it, and as long as that person is not you, which is a login user, it can also recommend it, and it will do that at random. So just randomly going to pick different people for you to recommend. So let's just go ahead and do that. So we're going to come into VS Code now, and what we want to do is to open up this index. So we don't even need this post again right here. Let's just come here. Let me give it like a comment and say user suggestion start. Now first of all, I want to get all the users in this platform on this platform. So I'll say user.objects.all, and I'll have the following all. So this is just an empty list, but what this is gonna be is all the people that the user is already following. That's what I want to do. So I'll say for user in user following. So remember that we already have this here right here. So I'll say for user in user following, user underscore list equals to user dot object dot get the one in which username equals to this user dot user. Now we can now say user following underscore all dot append user list. So now that we have this, what we can just do now is to say new suggestion list. So what we want to suggest now is the people that this user is not already following. So the new suggestions underscore list now equals to, now this is gonna be in a list, but in here we're gonna have like a for loop, so it's like a specific style. So say x for x in list all users. We're just converting this all users query set into a list. So and then we say if x not in list. So you might already understand where we're going with this. Following, so this is just the user following all. Just open and close this. So you might have already guessed what this is. So this is the suggestion list. So it's looping through the list of all the users and saying if this list is not in this list, then that is the new list. So it's just getting all the list of the users we are following and removing it from all the users on the platform. So now that we have that, the next thing we want to do is to remove the current user from this list, because what we have now in this new suggestion list is all the old users on the platform that we are not following. And as you know, we can't follow ourselves. That means we're also part of the suggestion list, and we can't suggest ourselves to ourselves. We can't suggest a user to himself. So what we just need to do is to make sure that we remove the current user from that list. So we'll say current underscore user should be equals to user dot object dot filter username equals request dot user dot username. And we now let's have like a list, but like for the final suggestions. So let me see, let's name it final underscore suggestions underscore list. Now should be equals to x for x in list, but now in new suggestions list that is not current user. And we just say if x not in list, and what we just say is current user, current underscore user. So we're just saying that this current user must not be in that list. So it's basically eliminating current user from that list. And then what we can just do to make sure that all of this in square brackets, because it's a list. So on square brackets, that's closed right there. So now that we have this, what we can just do, since we have this final suggestion list, now this is just a list of everybody that we are not following and that is not us. So now we just have that unique list. But now if we pass it to the front end or to the template, and we say we just get like, let's see, yeah, want to get like 5. So if we just get like the first 5 or something, that means that's the same thing that's just gonna show only those people are gonna be suggested. But what we want to do is to shuffle that list that we already have and make it random. So like once we even refresh this page, a new random list of suggestions comes up. So to do that, first of all, I have to import random from here. So say import random, and then right here now, after this, what we can just say is to say random dot shuffle this final suggestion list. So we want to shuffle this final suggestion list. And once it's shuffled, what we want to get is the final, like just 5 from that list, 5 from that shuffled list. But since before we get that, we don't want to get that now. What we can actually do, since we already have this list, we can pass that list into the HTML. But before we pass that list, what we want to get is the profile object of each of these lists, because right now from here what we have is the user object. So we need to get the profile object so we can return the profile picture, the username, and maybe the location or the bio or something. So that's the main thing we need to get. This is just a step from getting that. So let's go ahead and say user name underscore profile equals to empty, then username underscore profile underscore list be empty also, and we just do similar technique to what we did in the search. So say users in final suggestions list, each of the users, then we'll say username profile dot append users dot id dot id. Now that we have that, I can now say for IDs in username underscore profile, we'll say profile underscore lists equals to profile dot object dot filter id underscore user equals to IDs. Now that we have that, we can say user name underscore profile dot underscore list dot append profile underscore. So now we have this. What we can just say is, let's have a new list and say suggestions underscore username underscore profile underscore list. So the suggestions, the username profile list goes to list chain. We have to use the asterisk sign here, the username profile list. So this is what we need to do. Now that we have this, we can just pass that into, if I come here now, copy this is the final list, is being shuffled and everything. What I can just do now is to say suggestions username profile list. That's a weird name, but and give it that, but we get only first 4. That's how to just get the first 4, and then we save it. Now that we've saved it, we can come into the index, and right here in the index, what we just want to do is to scroll. So we want to, let's search actually. Let's search for, let's just move down instead of searching. So that's all the way down, because what we're looking for is these users you can follow. So this is it right here. We do not need this, and then good. So I think this is it. So what we need now, just to loop through this basic. So we have fresh, and right here you can say for suggestion in suggestions username profile. What we want to do with each of these suggestions, first of all, okay, so what we're supposed to do first of all is just to have one of it, but let's end the for loop here. So we just need one. Let's remove this remaining 3 right here. Just remove this, do the same here, and we do exactly the same thing here. Now that is good. If I hit save and press refresh, I'm just gonna see this 4 times. So it says list is not callable. So let's come back here, and what we just need to do is right here, this doesn't need the 2 curly braces, you just need one for this and one to close this. Now if we save it and then we go back here and hit refresh, let's make sure our site is running. So now you see that it works, but nothing is showing here, and this is because remember we got all the users on our platform and we said basically it should render the ones I'm not following and the ones that are not me. So the ones that is me and the ones that I'm not following is basically everybody on the platform. So that's why it doesn't have anything yet. But let's see. So let's come back here, come into index. So for suggestion in suggestion, what I can just do is to say suggestion section dot user. I'm gonna save it, and then right here I'm gonna hit refresh. So still the same thing. What I'm gonna do is to come here and then unfollow John. Now that I am not following John, if I go back home, hit refresh on this home, boom. Now you can see now that it recommends John for me, since just because I'm not following John again. So this is actually what I want. So if I follow John, it won't recommend John for me again. So what I just want to do is to go back to follow John / profile / John. Let me follow John. Once I come here, it doesn't recommend anybody because I'm following everybody on the platform. But now let me log out, and what I want to do is to create a bunch of accounts. So I can say, I don't know, Tomi at g.co, your password, sign up. So is logged in. I am Tomi from the UK, and right here we can just say London. Now we can save that, and once we come home, we have an account for Tomi, and you can see that Tomi is being recommended John and Tom because she isn't following any of those users. But we're also going to change this to the profile image of the user, and these followers are just going to put like the bio or something. So for now, let's just log out again and create like 2 more accounts. So let's just say Henry h@g.co, and let's have password, and let's wait for that to create. So we remove that. Let's say I am Henry, and you should know that. And let's say New Jersey, and we can save that and go to the home page, and now it's been recommended Tom, Tomi, and John. So let's just go back, log out, create a new account. Now let's just create Jasper j@g.co. Let's give it a password, submit, and now let's just say Jasper here, and let's say I'm from LA. Now let's just save that and go to home. So it's been recommended Henry, John, Tomi, and Tom. So one thing is, if I refresh this, you see it's random. Now Tomi is on top. If we have a bunch of people, like 100 people, it's just gonna be picking them randomly. So now let me log out and log in back as Tom. Now you see that I'm being recommended 3 people, being recommended Jasper, Tomi, and Henry. Now let me go back and finish that up. So right here in suggestion.user, let's change this to suggestion.bio, and also where we have this follow, we want it to be view user, so to take them to the profile page of the user, and then once it takes them there, they can follow the user right there. Right here now we can just say /profile /suggestion.user, and one more thing is the image, so we can just say suggestion.profile img.url, and it can be going to /profile /suggestion.user. So now let's save this, come here and hit refresh. Okay, so now as you can see, we have this Henry, I am Henry, and you should know that we have Jasper, Jasper here, we have Tammy, I'm from the UK. So we have all this good. We can go ahead and view Henry. He doesn't have no follower, no post, doesn't have anything, but we can support him and follow him. And now that we're following him, if we come to home, we don't see Henry there again. We are only being recommended these two people. But now, if Henry creates a new post, we're going to see Henry post right here. Now we've been successfully able to add these suggestions right here. So this very simple and basic algorithm we built right here. So I hope you understood everything we did till this point. We are pretty much done with this project. So let's just go like look at the project, like give it a final review, or just recap on everything we've done. So right now you can see it suggests me to follow a user named Jasper. We added this feature where it just suggests us random users. If I follow Jasper now he has one follower. We added also added his followers and following style. So now if I go home, it doesn't suggest me Jasper again, and it also shows me the posts of the users I'm following. So if Jasper that I just followed, if he uploads a post, I'm going to see it in my feed. So we customize the feed for only the users we're following, and we can like posts, like it. If you liked it, like by one person now. If you dislike it, no likes. And we can also click on this John, and then it's going to take us to the profile page of John, and we can follow or unfollow him. It's going to show us the bio, his username, his profile pics. And if we click on images he posted, we can just slide through all the images back to the home. And we can also use this search functionality, like we know we have John, so let's say we are looking for John and we just search JOH. We hit search. Now you see that it brings us John, gives us the location and this bio. So if we click on that, we're gonna see profile. And we also added this where a user can upload a pics and choose the file and the caption. Right here we also have this account settings where you can change his profile picture, change his bio, or update his look. So this is a basic walkthrough of everything that we did in this video, in this course. So there is still a lot that can be done to this project. So but I hope with everything you've learned and the knowledge you've learned from this video, you can customize it and also add your own features. If you want to do the comments or you want to do anything you want to do, I hope with what you've learned you can be able to do. Thank you for watching or taking this course and finishing it up to this point. Thank you so much.